On to Europe now. Another day, another Quran burnt. Once again in Denmark, copies of the Holy Book were torched outside two embassies in Europe, those of Egypt and Turkey in Denmark. The same thing happened on Monday and Friday as well. So that's 5 days and 4 incidents. We've talked about why this is happening. We've also explained who is behind it. But tonight we're asking a more fundamental question. Are minorities safe in Europe? That's our question. Are they and their culture under attack? We ask this because no one in the West will. They will not ask this question. For them, the idea of discrimination in Europe is just impossible. It's like the sun rising in the West. But if you look closer, you will see problems, a gradual and systemic attempt to target minorities, especially Arab and African Muslims. We can divide these attempts into two parts. One is institutional discrimination, things done by the government. The second is hate crimes and xenophobia. Let's look at the first part. Government attempts began in the late 2000s. This was after the 2008 financial crisis. New populist leaders appeared across Europe. Soon, the targeting began. In 2009, Switzerland announced a controversial move. They banned minarets on mosques. 57% of Swiss voters supported this decision. The United Nations called it discriminatory. Rights agencies said that this reflects rising intolerance, but the Swiss did not care. Even Western media jumped to defend it. Look at what the Huffington Post had to say about this. I'm quoting, "Many Swiss are worried about the rise of political Islam, which is threatening hard-won rights such as equal rights for women and men." Political Islam is definitely a problem, but Switzerland sure had a weird way of tackling it. And this soon became a trend. Instead of tackling Islamist extremism, Europe targeted Islam. In 2011, Belgium banned the burqa. They said you can't wear it anywhere in public. The matter went to the European Court of Rights, and guess what happened? They said the ban is fine. Today, around 12 European countries have such laws. The burqa is fully or partially banned. The list of countries includes France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Denmark, and Switzerland, the so-called havens of freedoms and choice. In 2014, Austria introduced a new law. They wanted to create an Austrian version of Islam. How would they do that? By switching languages. Austria said all Muslim clerics must speak in German. Plus, only the German translation of the Quran can be used, no Arabic ones. Does this apply to other religions? Absolutely not. The Bible can be used and read in any language. Some countries went beyond regulation. They shut down mosques. France passed a so-called anti-separatism bill in 2021. It kicked off a series of raids. Around 89 mosques were inspected. More than 20 of them have been shut down. On what grounds? That the French will not say. Their interior ministry claims they were promoting radicalism. And the evidence? It's apparently secretive. These are all policies adopted against radical Islam, but it's also throttling the minority. It's being seen as an all-out assault on Islamic culture. When the government does this, the people catch on, which brings us to the second part of the problem, hate crimes and xenophobia. We'll start with the numbers. In 2017, a survey found that 33% Muslims in Europe experienced discrimination. 33%. That's 1 in 3. 27% experienced racist crimes. So if you ask 4 European Muslims, one of them has been affected. Mosque attacks are another problem. Germany has reported 800 mosque attacks since 2014. 800. 150 of them in 2020 alone. Now, for some context, the country only has some 2,000 mosques. It's even worse in the UK. Around 42% of the mosques in the UK have been attacked. This report came out in 2022. It only covers the last 4 years. If you go even further back, I'm sure more cases will emerge. You can see this bias in everyday life, in things like policing and court cases. Just look at the riots in France last month. They were triggered by the killing of an Arab Muslim teenager. What was his crime? Fleeing from a traffic stop, that's all. He died for it. Would this have happened to white French citizens? I think we all know the answer. In France, around 10% of the population is Muslim, but in the prison population, It's the opposite. Around 60% of French inmates are Muslim. Germany has a similar problem. Around 20% of their prison inmates are Muslim. But only 6% of the general population is Muslim. So let's recap the last 4 minutes. You cannot wear a burqa in most of Europe. Your mosque cannot have a minaret in Switzerland. Plus, they can be raided and shut down in France. Your imam must speak German in Austria. You also have more chances of ending up in jail. Does this sound like equality and separatism to you? To me, it sounds like persecution. And don't think persecution comes only in one size. It's not always ethnic cleansing, or burning down mosques, or putting Muslims in labor camps. Those are extreme forms of persecution. Europe is practicing a lighter version of it. They pretend to be liberal and secular. They preach to the whole world about tolerance. But what are they doing at home? Diluting their religious minorities, turning them into so-called European version of Muslims. And for what? Some concerns they have about Islamization. Let me explain. We told you about what Belgium did. They banned the burqa in 2011. Now you must think that the streets of Brussels are filled with women in head coverings. Well, think again. Only 270 women in the country used to wear a burqa. 270. All this outrage was over 270 women in an entire country. Same with Switzerland's ban on minarets. They announced a decision in 2009. It was a Swiss skyline filled with Persian minarets. Far from it. Just 4 mosques had them. And I'm not saying that Europe does not have a problem. They do have terror attacks. There is also growing radicalism. But Europe's response is all over the place. It's about time we call them out. Because these Quran burnings are not some sudden or rare trend. They are the result of Europe's years-long policy.